Thomas lived in a small, cozy house at the edge of town. He was a carpenter, and his days were filled with the smell of sawdust and the satisfying feeling of shaping wood. He wasn't unhappy, but he was lonely. His wife had passed away many years ago, and he never remarried. His days were quiet, almost too quiet. He'd wake up, have a simple breakfast, go to his workshop, and work until the sun went down. Sometimes he'd talk to his dog, Buster, but mostly it was just him and the wood. He liked the routine, the predictability of it all. He knew what to expect each day. The sunrise, the birds singing, the feel of the wood in his hands. It was a simple life, but it was his. He didn't need much, just a roof over his head and enough wood to keep him busy. But deep down, he longed for something more, someone to share his life with. He missed the laughter, the companionship, the feeling of belonging. He just didn't know how to find it again. His small town of Harmony Creek was quaint, but everyone kept to themselves, which made it hard to meet anyone. Harmony Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business, or at least thought they did. It was a town of potlucks and Friday night football games, of lemonade stands in the summer and Christmas caroling in the winter. But beneath the friendly facade, there was a certain reserve, a hesitation to truly let outsiders in. Thomas had always been on the periphery of things, even before his wife passed. He wasn't unfriendly, but he wasn't particularly outgoing either. He was just quiet. The town was nestled in a valley, surrounded by rolling hills and dense forests. The air was clean and fresh, and the stars at night were incredibly bright. It was a beautiful place to live, but it could also feel isolating, especially for someone like Thomas. He often wondered if he was missing out on something, if he should try harder to connect with people. But the effort always felt too great, the risk of rejection too high. So he stayed in his little house, making furniture and fixing things, content with his own company, or so he told himself. Sarah was a wisp of a woman, but her eyes held a fierce determination. Life hadn't been kind. Her husband, a truck driver, had died suddenly in an accident, leaving her with nothing but 2 small children and a mountain of debt. She'd packed up what little they had and moved to Harmony Creek, hoping for a fresh start, a place where she could raise her children in peace. But jobs were scarce, and the town, as Thomas knew, wasn't always welcoming. Lily, the older child, was a bright, curious girl with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin. She loved to draw and tell stories, and she was fiercely protective of her little brother. Tom, the younger one, was shy and quiet, clinging to his mother's leg whenever they were in a new place. He had big, round eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of sadness. Sarah did her best to keep their spirits up, but it was hard. They were always hungry, always cold, and always scared. She was running out of options, and the desperation was starting to show. She needed help, and she needed it fast. The knock was soft, hesitant, almost as if the knocker was afraid to disturb the peace. Thomas, sanding a table leg in his workshop, almost didn't hear it. Buster, however, perked up his ears and let out a low woof. Thomas put down the sandpaper and wiped his hands on his apron. He wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door to find Sarah standing on his porch, her face etched with worry. Lily and Tom were huddled behind her, their eyes wide and uncertain. Sarah took a deep breath. "Mr. Thomas, I know this is a lot to ask, and I wouldn't if I had any other choice," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "We're new to town, and we don't have anyone here. We need help." She paused, her gaze dropping to the worn wooden planks of the porch. "I don't have any money, and I can't find a job. We haven't eaten a proper meal in days." She looked up, her eyes meeting Thomas's. "They ain't yours," she said, gesturing to the children. "But they need you." The words hung in the air, heavy with desperation and a plea that Thomas couldn't ignore. Thomas stood frozen, the weight of Sarah's words pressing down on him. He wasn't used to this. His life was orderly, predictable. Children. He hadn't been around children in years. He glanced at Lily and Tom, their faces a mixture of fear and hope. His mind raced. What could he possibly do? He was just a simple carpenter. A voice in his head screamed, "Turn them away! You can't take care of them." "You're not a father." But another voice, a quieter one, whispered, "Look at them, Thomas. They need you." He thought of his own loneliness, the emptiness in his house. He thought of his late wife, Mary, and how she always had a soft spot for those in need. He hesitated, caught between his comfortable routine and the desperate plea in Sarah's eyes. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. He swallowed hard. This was a turning point. His safe, predictable life was about to change, whether he liked it or not. The decision was his, and it terrified him. "All right," Thomas finally said, his voice rough from disuse. "All right, come in. Just for tonight." He knew it was a weak agreement, a temporary solution, but it was all he could manage at the moment. He couldn't bring himself to turn them away completely. Sarah's face lit up with relief, and she ushered the children inside. The little house suddenly felt smaller, more crowded. Thomas awkwardly showed them to the spare room, which was mostly empty except for an old bed and a dusty bookshelf. "I'll get you some blankets," he mumbled, retreating to the linen closet. He rummaged through the shelves, finding a couple of old quilts that Mary had made. They smelled faintly of lavender and sunshine. He brought the blankets to the room and watched as Sarah tucked the children into bed. Lily was already asleep, her thumb in her mouth. Tom, however, was still wide awake, his eyes fixed on Thomas. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Thomas just nodded, unsure of what to say. He promised himself he'd help them find a more permanent solution tomorrow. Just one night, he thought. Just one night to get them fed and safe. Then he'd figure something else out. He had no idea what he was getting himself into. The next morning, Thomas woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. He rushed to the kitchen to find Sarah attempting to make breakfast. Smoke billowed from the pan, and the eggs were charred black. "Oh, Mr. Thomas, I'm so sorry," she said, flustered. "I'm not much of a cook." Thomas chuckled, a sound he hadn't made in a long time. "Don't worry, I'll take over." He shooed her away from the stove and quickly whipped up a batch of pancakes. Lily and Tom watched him with wide eyes, their hunger evident. As they ate, Lily shyly offered to help him clear the table. Tom, still quiet, sat close to Thomas, occasionally glancing up at him with a small, hesitant smile. After breakfast, Lily, seeing Thomas head to his workshop, asked if she could watch him work. He hesitated, then nodded. She sat quietly on a stool, observing his every move as he sanded a piece of wood. She even helped him find a stray nail, her small hands surprisingly deft. These small moments, these tiny connections, started to chip away at the wall around Thomas's heart. He realized that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he thought he was. Thomas knew he couldn't just let Sarah and the children fend for themselves. He started making inquiries around town, asking if anyone knew of any available jobs. He used his carpentry skills to fix a leaky roof for Mrs. Henderson in exchange for her promise to recommend Sarah to the local diner. He even built a small wooden sign for the diner, hoping it would catch the owner's eye. He also helped Sarah fill out job applications, guiding her through the process with patience he didn't know he possessed. He learned that she was a skilled seamstress, so he offered to build her a small workbench and helped her advertise her services with flyers he posted around town. Slowly, Sarah started getting small sewing jobs, mending clothes and hemming curtains. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Thomas felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He was helping someone, making a difference in their lives. And in doing so, he was also helping himself. He was no longer just a lonely carpenter. He was a friend, a helper, a support system. He was becoming part of something bigger than himself. Just when things seemed to be looking up, a shadow from Sarah's past threatened to destroy their newfound stability. A letter arrived, a demand for repayment of a loan her late husband had taken out. The amount was staggering, far more than Sarah could ever hope to earn with her small sewing jobs. The letter was curt and threatening, hinting at legal action and the possibility of taking her children. Sarah was devastated, the color draining from her face as she read the letter aloud to Thomas. He listened grimly, his jaw tightening with anger. He knew that some people in town already looked down on Sarah for being a widow with young children and no money. This debt would only fuel their prejudice and make it even harder for her to get ahead. The threat of losing her children hung heavy in the air. Thomas knew he had to do something, but he wasn't sure what. He was just a carpenter, not a lawyer or a banker. But he couldn't stand by and watch Sarah and the children lose everything. He felt a fierce protectiveness rise within him, a determination to fight for them, even if it meant risking everything he had. Thomas decided he wouldn't let Sarah face this alone. He started by visiting Mr. Abernathy, the town's oldest and most respected lawyer. He explained Sarah's situation and asked for his advice. Mr. Abernathy, a gruff but kind-hearted man, agreed to look into the matter. Next, Thomas went to the local bank and spoke with the manager, Mr. Peterson. He inquired about the possibility of a loan for Sarah, even offering his own house as collateral. Mr. Peterson, however, was hesitant. He knew about the town's gossip and Sarah's lack of resources. Thomas, usually so quiet and reserved, surprised himself with his passionate plea. He spoke about Sarah's hard work, her determination, and the children's need for a stable home. He argued that Sarah deserved a chance, just like anyone else. He even confronted Mr. Peterson about the town's prejudice, reminding him that Harmony Creek was supposed to be a place of compassion and understanding. His words, filled with conviction and sincerity, seemed to make an impact. Mr. Peterson promised to consider the loan application, impressed by Thomas's unexpected display of courage and loyalty. Thomas was stepping up, not just as a helper, but as a defender of this newfound family. One afternoon, while Sarah was out on a sewing job, Tom came into the workshop, clutching a broken wooden truck. "Mr. Thomas, can you fix it?" he asked, his voice small and hopeful. Thomas smiled. He hadn't made toys in years, not since Mary had passed. But looking at Tom's earnest face, he couldn't refuse. He carefully examined the truck, showing Tom how the wheels had come loose. He let Tom help him sand the edges and glue the pieces back together. As they worked, Thomas found himself explaining the different types of wood, the tools he used, and the importance of taking care of things. He realized he was teaching Tom something, sharing his knowledge and passion. Later that week, he built Lily a small dollhouse, complete with tiny furniture and hand-sewn curtains. He even carved little wooden dolls for her to play with. Watching Lily's face light up as she received the dollhouse was a feeling Thomas hadn't experienced in decades. He discovered a joy in creating, not just functional objects, but things that brought happiness and wonder to children's lives. He was more than a carpenter. He was a toy maker, a storyteller, a father figure. He was finding a new purpose, a new identity, in the love and laughter of these children. As the weeks passed, a quiet affection began to blossom between Thomas and Sarah. They started sharing meals together, talking about their days, and laughing at Lily and Tom's antics. Thomas found himself looking forward to Sarah's smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed. He admired her strength and resilience, her unwavering love for her children. Sarah, in turn, appreciated Thomas's kindness and generosity. She saw beyond his quiet exterior to the warm, caring heart within. She valued his support and his willingness to help her build a new life. One evening, after putting the children to bed, they found themselves sitting on the porch swing, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. The silence was comfortable, filled with unspoken feelings. Thomas reached out and gently took Sarah's hand. Her skin was soft and calloused from sewing. He looked into her eyes, and he saw a reflection of his own loneliness, his own hope for a future filled with love and companionship. The moment hung in the air, fragile and beautiful, a silent promise of something more. The town, of course, had noticed. Whispers followed Sarah and Thomas whenever they went into town. Some people smiled and offered words of encouragement, happy to see Thomas finally finding happiness again. Others, however, were less welcoming. Mrs. Gable, the town's resident gossip, spread rumors about Sarah, questioning her intentions and implying that she was taking advantage of Thomas. Old Mr. Henderson, usually so friendly, started avoiding Thomas, muttering something about unseemly behavior under his breath. Thomas tried to ignore the whispers and the stares, but it was hard. He knew that some people disapproved of his relationship with Sarah, that they saw her as an outsider, a gold digger. He worried about what the children were hearing, about how their classmates might be treating them. Sarah, too, was affected by the town's judgment. She overheard snippets of conversations in the diner, saw the disapproving glances in the grocery store. She started to doubt herself, wondering if she was doing the right thing, if she was bringing too much trouble into Thomas's life. She knew that she and the children were different, that they didn't quite fit in with the picture-perfect image of Harmony Creek. The pressure was building, threatening to crack the fragile foundation of their newfound happiness. Just when Sarah was starting to feel like she could truly build a life in Harmony Creek, an opportunity arose that threatened to tear everything apart. Her sister, who lived in a larger city several hours away, called with news of a job opening at a reputable tailoring shop. It was a stable, well-paying position, far better than anything Sarah could hope to find in Harmony Creek. The catch? It meant leaving Thomas. Sarah wrestled with the decision for days. She knew that the job would provide her children with a secure future, a chance for a better education and a life free from financial worries. But it also meant leaving behind the man who had given them a home, who had shown them kindness and love, who had become an integral part of their lives. She didn't know what to do. She confided in Thomas, her voice filled with uncertainty and pain. He listened patiently, his heart aching with the realization that she might leave. He knew he couldn't ask her to stay, not when it meant sacrificing her children's future. But the thought of losing her, of losing Lily and Tom, filled him with a profound sadness. He knew a big decision was looming for them all. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind filled with images of Sarah and the children leaving. He knew he had to tell her how he felt, even if it meant risking everything. He got out of bed and walked to the spare room. He gently knocked on the door, and Sarah opened it, her eyes filled with concern. He took a deep breath. "Sarah," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I know you have a big decision to make, and I don't want to pressure you, but I need you to know something." He paused, gathering his courage. I love you, and I love Lily and Tom. You've all brought so much joy and laughter into my life. I know I'm not their father, but I want to be. I want to be a part of your family, a permanent part." He looked at her, his eyes filled with sincerity and vulnerability. "I know it's not much, but I can offer you a home, security, and all the love in my heart. Please don't leave. Stay here with me." He waited, his heart pounding in his chest, unsure of what her answer would be. The silence was deafening. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Oh, Thomas," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I love you too. And the children, they adore you. You've given us a home, a family, something we thought we'd lost forever." She reached out and gently touched his face. "I was so worried about doing what was best for my children, about providing for them. But I realized that what they need most is love, and they have that here, with you." She paused, her gaze searching his. "I'm not going anywhere, Thomas. We're staying. We're a family now, and we'll face whatever challenges come our way, together." She leaned in and kissed him, a soft, tender kiss that sealed their commitment to each other. The relief that washed over Thomas was overwhelming. He wrapped his arms around Sarah, holding her close, feeling a sense of peace and belonging he hadn't felt in years. They had found each other, two lonely souls who had unexpectedly created a family filled with love, laughter, and hope. The future was uncertain, but they knew they could face it together. The following Saturday, the family decided to tackle a big project together, building a treehouse in the old oak tree in the backyard. Thomas, with his carpentry skills, took the lead, guiding Lily and Tom as they hammered nails and sawed wood. Sarah helped by sewing cushions for the seats and hanging a colorful banner with their names on it. Thomas, Sarah, Lily, and Tom. Even Buster got involved, barking encouragement from below. As they worked, laughter filled the air, a symphony of joy and collaboration. The treehouse became more than just a wooden structure. It was a symbol of their unity, their shared dreams, and their commitment to building a life together. It represented the home they had created, not just with bricks and mortar, but with love, kindness, and acceptance. The townspeople who passed by couldn't help but smile at the sight of the happy family working together, their differences melting away in the warmth of their shared purpose. Even Mrs. Gable seemed to soften her gaze, a hint of admiration flickering in her eyes. The treehouse was a testament to the power of love and the beauty of found family. Years passed. Lily and Tom grew, their laughter echoing through Thomas's little house, filling it with a warmth he had long forgotten. Sarah's sewing business thrived, and she became known throughout the town for her skill and her kind heart. Thomas continued his carpentry, but he also dedicated his time to making toys for children in need, inspired by the joy he had found in creating for Lily and Tom. Mr. Abernathy, with his legal expertise, helped Sarah negotiate a manageable payment plan for her late husband's debt, easing the financial burden and allowing her to focus on building a stable future for her family. Mr. Peterson, impressed by Thomas's character and Sarah's hard work, eventually approved a small loan to help them renovate the house, adding a new room for the growing family. Even Mrs. Gable, mellowed with age, became a regular customer at Sarah's sewing shop, often sharing stories and offering words of wisdom. Harmony Creek, once a place of quiet reserve, slowly embraced Sarah, Lily, and Tom, recognizing them as valuable members of the community. Thomas, once a lonely widower, was now the center of a loving family, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and a sense of belonging. He had found his purpose, his joy, in the most unexpected way. One sunny afternoon, many years later, Thomas stood in his workshop, surrounded by the familiar scent of sawdust and the happy chatter of his family. Lily, now a young woman, was sketching designs for a new line of children's clothing for her mother's shop. Tom, a tall, lanky teenager, was helping Thomas sand the legs of a rocking horse, his brow furrowed in concentration. Sarah, humming softly, was sewing a colorful saddle for the horse, her fingers moving with practiced ease. They were working together on a project for the annual town fair, a symbol of their acceptance and integration into the community. As they worked, Thomas looked around at his family, his heart overflowing with gratitude and love. He had started as a lonely widower, his life empty and predictable. But Sarah and her children had brought light and laughter into his world, transforming him into something more than he ever thought possible. He was a father, a husband, a friend, a pillar of his community. And it all started with a knock on his door and a desperate plea for help. He smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected packages. As the sun set over Harmony Creek, casting a warm golden glow on the little house at the edge of town, Thomas, Sarah, Lily, and Tom gathered on the porch swing. They watched the fireflies dance in the twilight, their laughter mingling with the chirping of crickets. It was a simple scene, but it was perfect. Thomas looked at Sarah, her eyes sparkling with love and contentment. He looked at Lily and Tom, their faces beaming with happiness and a sense of belonging. He realized that they had created something truly special, a family born not of blood, but of choice, of love, and of unwavering support. They had proven that family isn't always about where you come from, but who you choose to be with. And it all started with a lonely widow knocking on his door with 2 children and saying, "They ain't yours, but they need you." He had opened that door, not knowing what to expect, but he had found a love and a purpose he never thought possible. It was a testament to the power of kindness, the resilience of the human spirit, and the beauty of found family. They were a family, bound together by love, laughter, and a shared belief that anything is possible, as long as you have each other.